Today on the podcast, we're talking photography, education, and zines. This is the Kansas City Podcast. Welcome to the Kansas City Podcast. My name is Cole Limberg. I'm your host with the most. Step back, too close. Many of you know me from my days as a magician's assistant, and if not, it's nice to meet you. You know, each week here on the Kansas City Podcast, we are joined by a one-of-a-kind KC native for a conversation on life in the city of fountains. What do you think about that? It's pretty... Does it capture the essence of what we're trying to do here, do you think?
I think so. I'm just now introduced to the concept.
Okay, well, that's what we're trying to do here. That is the goal.
Great.
You know, it's a beautiful day today. I have actually traveled down to Westport.
Right.
And I'm in Westport. I'm in a building here. I'm in an office building. But I'm here with, I've got a very long introduction here. She works nonprofit by day. She is a side hustler at night, a freelance photographer, and the editor of Here Queer. We have a lot to talk about. Please welcome to the podcast, Anna Selle. Anna Selle, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
No. Thank you for being on the show. And, you know, I think there's no better place to start because you are a freelance photographer. Mm-hmm. What's ISO? Break it down for me. What is ISO? That's what the people on the show want to know.
That's what they really are dying to hear about.
They love specific photography questions about light and beams and ISO. What is ISO?
Right. So ISO is film speed.
Okay.
And it's a little different in the digital world than it is in the film world, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's all I need to know.
We're going to get really jargony.
That's perfect.
Okay,
That's
great.
perfect. You captured it.
Awesome.
Captured it perfectly. We'll have more nerdy photography questions as we go, like shutter speed.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you about
that's an easy one.
Lighting, shutter speed, like the quicker the thing. So like if something's moving really fast, you got to have a fast shutter speed.
Right.
Because otherwise it's going to be blurry.
But then it might be too dark.
And see, that's when you got to adjust your
ISO.
See, okay, perfect. We're on the same page then.
Great.
All right, so Anna, you've got a lot of stuff going on. Where should we start? Where should we begin? Because I want to get to know you.
Sure.
I want to give me your basic breakdown of who are you?
Well, I guess we could start with where we are right now.
Yeah, tell me where we're at.
This is a place where I spend a lot of time.
Okay.
So we're currently in the EduHub, which is an office building here.
EduHub.
EduHub. That houses several nonprofits. It's like a co-working space.
Okay.
One of which I am employed by.
Okay.
But the Literacy Lab is more than a job. It is a lifestyle. And
okay.
That,
it's a full lifestyle.
Well,
all right.
it really, yeah, the Literacy Lab is an AmeriCorps program.
Okay.
So I started working with the Literacy Lab as an AmeriCorps member, serving in a pre-K classroom down in the Hickman Mills School District.
Okay.
And from there, they just slowly convinced me to work full time for the organization.
Slowly.
Little drops in the bucket. Like the first week, it's like, hey, we're really impressed by your participation at training, and then later on, it's hey,
like they give you the little
if you need
nudges
some help
along
with your
the way.
future plans after your AmeriCorps year, feel free to talk to us. And then full on, hey, we have a position opening up, and we'd really like for you to
so
apply.
It's like the slow drip of oh, you're kind of good at this, and then a month later, hey, you ever thought of I understand. So what is so yes, there are a bunch of nonprofits. We're actually we're sitting in kind of this cool little co-working space surrounded by all these they're empty offices right now.
Right, because it's a Saturday afternoon.
Well, I mean, of course, this episode is going to be released in the future, so these people don't even know what day it is.
Okay, that's fair. This is my favorite day to be at the office, though.
Because it's the quietest?
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
I'm way
sense.
too easily distracted.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I mean, there's too much going on, and then you're well, and also, if it was a busy work day today, then I'm sure everybody would want to be on the show, right?
Right, everybody would be popping in to talk about the great work they're doing in Kansas City. So.
Exactly. Okay, so tell me about your specific, the Literacy Lab. What does the Literacy Lab do?
So the Literacy Lab places, like I said, it's an AmeriCorps program. So we're placing full-time tutors to implement highly targeted literacy intervention at public schools and charter schools in Kansas City. So we work primarily with KCPS, but we're also working with Center, Hickman Mills, and several charter partners. And those tutors, they're really really getting at what is like what we consider the root cause of the achievement gap, which is early literacy intervention.
Gotcha.
So working with those kids before they ever have a chance to get too far behind, and catching them up to speed by the end of third grade.
Very nice. And so, I mean, so third grade and under is what we're looking for?
Right, yeah. The cutest grades, as we like to say.
The cutest grade. Right. I think in third grade, I was like I think that was when I started to hit like my total kind of nerd phase, you know? Like first and second, I remember first, okay. Second, I remember like making a dinosaur. Third, I remember my teacher was a bitch. So
my third grade teacher was incredible. Miss Stalter, shout out to you if you're listening to the podcast.
Oh, you got lucky. All right. So wait, what about some of the other, we talked about this a little bit, but I mean, there's even more nonprofits here that you guys all in this co-working space.
Right,
so I mean, what's the end goal here? I mean, you all going to work together? Are you going to try to figure this stuff out? I mean, you probably already work together, right?
Right. Yeah. And we're all part of like this general, like this overarching like landscape for education development and innovation in Kansas City. So it's interesting to work in this space because we have, you know, like the literacy lab and Turn the Page KC that are just like, we need to get kids reading by the end of third grade. Like that's our goal and that's the work we're doing. It's very like hands-on in the community. And then we've got other organizations like, you know, EdOps here does like back-end management for like charter schools.
Gotcha.
Show Me KC Schools is connecting parents with information about what school might be best for them. And then we have like the Lean Lab down here that's all about innovation and trying to develop new practices in education. So we're all kind of all over the place in terms of what part of education we're touching, but our end goal at the end of the day is that we want to see students succeeding in Kansas City and creating like a world-class landscape.
So how's it going so far?
I mean, I think it's going pretty well. We're all rapidly growing to the point where this...
so if you're rapidly growing, then that means that could mean good things,
I think it means good things here in that it means that people are interested in becoming part of this problem-solving group. You know, we see the problems in the education landscape and we want to... I've said landscape like 9 times now. I'm going to try to start using different words.
That's fine. You can use whatever words you like.
Okay, great. And we're all trying to address those problems in a way that is like sustainable and in the landscape, sustainable landscaping. Yeah, something like that. So that's where we are.
We had a gardening episode a couple weeks ago. I don't think I said landscaping once, but you're making up for it for all the gardening folks. Okay, so very cool, awesome project, awesome mission. Do you think? I mean, you said you're involved in AmeriCorps. Like, this is your nonprofit by day. Is there a way that other people can get involved? Like, how can people get involved with this?
So a lot of these organizations are like needing volunteers to help out. A lot of us have.
And what would that entail? Like, let's just take Literacy Lab, for instance. Sure. What would a volunteer for Literacy Lab do?
So that's a great question, and it kind of can look 2 different ways. Okay. Every now and then we're recruiting volunteers for projects like, you know, collecting books for a book drive or writing notes for students and that sort of thing. Little like one-off projects, but then the bulk of our volunteers, quote unquote, are actually AmeriCorps members, so they're working full-time.
Gotcha.
So that's a pretty big commitment. But if you're interested in getting involved and being part of, you know, that challenge, I would start by looking at maybe going to like Eventbrite and typing in education in the search bar and seeing like what events are popping up. Because a lot of these groups are holding, you know, meetings and discussions and happy hours to talk about the education
in environment in Kansas City education better. I mean, basically, I mean, that's the end goal there at the end of the day.
Right.
Have you personally firsthand seen like some really great like... what's the word? I'm in landscape. No, have you seen like firsthand some really great, you know, things happening with this? I mean, I'm sure that you get to spend time with kids all the time, right? And I mean,
well, you know, I spend more time in the office and working with our tutors, which is still fun.
Oh, okay. So the tutors going out and, you know, like they're seeing firsthand, you know, success.
Right. And they're bringing back the stories to us of, you know, their second grader who started the year not knowing any letter sounds and is now being like more fluent in their reading patterns. And that kind of growth and development in one student, you know, might not seem like a lot when you're talking about a city with several thousands, if not maybe hundreds of thousands of students. Yeah. But that one story is like, you know, one little drop in the bucket of all these people who are collectively working together.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Now we're going to switch it up a little bit.
Sure.
We've talked about your nonprofit by day.
Right.
Now let's talk about your side hustle at night.
Side hustle by night, right.
Anna Selle nights. Okay. You're a freelance photographer.
Right.
I know you get to go out and shoot like concerts all the time.
Yes.
Okay. I got a really big question.
Sure.
You go out.
Okay.
You're shooting these concerts.
Okay.
what's the craziest concert experience you've had so far? Shooting because here's why I asked this question. Here's why I asked this question. Because when I was a kid, right, I loved concerts, and I still go to concerts like all the time. Okay, and I love music, and I was always really like infatuated with like the production aspect of the show. Okay, like looking at the lights and looking at the speakers. And so the other night I was at a show and I was sitting by like the mix table, and I was like,
it's a great place to be if you're at a show, by the way.
I know
the mix table is like where the sound is going to be the best, because that's where they're judging the sound from.
So I was like right behind the mix table, everything sounded great, but then I'm watching all these guys flip levers, and I'm just like, I'm still, even now, like I'm still totally blown away. But I gotta imagine for you, because if you're going to a concert and you're photographing, you're taking landscape portraits.
No, not quite. But
okay, you're taking landscape photos of the show. You're like in it. You're like there. You're like
you're
front
right
and
down
center.
there.
But so I mean, does it ever get crazy for you, or like is there some crazy stuff that's happened?
Yeah, yes and no. I feel like, so the beauty of being at a lot of venues is that there will be a photo pit.
Okay.
Which is a little barricaded area where photographers are allowed to stand.
And sometimes that's in the front, like sometimes in the back, right?
Front typically at some of the larger venues. It might be back towards like the sound booth. Which is always a fun challenge for someone who has not yet invested in the several $1,000 telephoto zoom lens. But,
okay, yes. They're going to get some really nice big pictures from far away.
Right, some good crowd shots.
Yes, okay.
So the craziest production, I think, though, that I've seen recently was an Alt-J show at Starlight Theater.
Okay.
And that was because, so at Starlight there is no photo pit.
Right.
So you're just shooting from the sides.
Correct.
You can kind of like walk around in the aisles and shoot from farther back, but you have to be like really respectful of the fact that you might be in front of
somebody's way,
a fan, and I don't want to impede on anyone's experience.
Right.
And you also usually only have like the first 3 songs to photograph bands.
That's right, because they want to kick you out. They're like, we've had enough of this.
Right, and I totally respect that, because like I said, like it's about the experience, and there's something
they don't
about
want somebody like popping in front of like a fan, and all of a sudden here comes a photographer.
Right, and then there's something like really that takes you out of the the world and the environment,
out of the moment.
Yeah, when you like see the little photographer running around.
So while Alt J is like, please don't go, like then like you pop in and like, oh, they're ruining my gibberish.
Right,
what's going on?
So yeah, that was a crazy production though, in that there were like these cages of bar LED lights surrounding every member of the band. So from the sides, it was like side bars. So, and they were like not like super spaced out. They were pretty close together. So shooting through them was
so you're basically like the photos you're taking, you have to like try to time it just right so you can like capture a face through the cage.
Yeah, sort of. And then it was easier to capture from out in the audience, because they didn't have bars in front of their faces, but to shoot from the side was like shooting through these like bars of LED lights.
Strange.
So it was a beautiful show. Like the production was beautiful.
Crazy.
And there's that dichotomy between beautiful production and easy to photograph.
Right.
It's a Venn diagram, I guess. And sometimes that center like is that sweet spot for a photographer where the production really enhances like your experience as a photographer, but a lot of times if the production is nuts, like you're fighting against that as a photographer.
Correct.
But those are the challenges that I really like.
So how did you get involved in this? Because I think it's amazing. That's because I mean, do you get after your 3 songs, do you just hit the road?
It depends on the show, honestly.
Right?
If it's, like a Wednesday night and it's a 11 o'clock show and I got to be back here at the EduHub in the morning, sometimes I might leave after the first 3 songs. But
you got your press pass. You can
just hang out. And a lot of the times I do, because a lot of the shows that I'm shooting are bands that I really, really want to see.
Yeah.
Because I want to tell their story visually to an audience, and that's why I'm there. So, it depends on the show.
Okay, so how'd you get into this?
That was the root of that question.
Sorry, I took it off 2 other different ways, because I'm very interested in this. This blows my mind.
That's a really good question. There's like a really, really long-winded answer, and I'll kind of do the medium-winded answer.
That's fine.
Is that my mom is a photography teacher, so as a young child, she got me into photography, and
she taught you ISO.
She taught me what ISO means
and shutter speed.
Okay. And a lot of times I've like picked it up and put it back down, picked it up, put it back down, and then finally I was interning for the Record Machine, which is a record label in town.
Okay.
And doing a lot of photo work for them. And through the record machine, I met my girlfriend, Rachel Mallon, who is a musician. And I was at a show of hers one night, and her bandmate had a DSLR camera, and they were like, "Hey, would you mind shooting a few pictures of us?" Having no idea that like I've had this experience of photography for several years in my life, and they're like, it's on manual, like you really don't have to do, or I'm sorry, it's on auto, you don't have to do that much, and so then like
so
I gave the camera back and like had switched it over to manual mode, and they were like, you actually know a little bit about photography,
you know what you're doing,
do you want to shoot some more shows for us? And then we ended up dating, so I don't know what that says about my professionalism.
I mean, they must have thought that she must have thought that the photos were good.
I hope so.
I mean,
that's what she's told me.
That's what she's told you. I mean, you're dating,
that,
I mean, that's right. Like, it's kind of the way it's got to go, right?
Yeah.
You shot some really nice photos of me. You want to date?
Yeah.
Was that the conversation?
I continue to shoot nice photos of her. I think that's the only reason she keeps me around.
So how long has this freelance photography thing been going on then since that? Like, how long ago was that?
So I really seriously started getting into it about a year ago. So Rachel and I started dating closer to 2 years ago. And during that time, I was like, for that first year, I was kind of like doing it for fun and not really like going out of my way to try to get opportunities, just kind of like seeing whatever came up, like shooting shows for her or for the record machine.
Right.
And then as time went on, I got introduced to more folks in the music industry. And people were saying like, "Oh, hey, I've seen, Rachel post your photos. Could you take some band portraits of us? Do you want to come out and shoot this show for us?" And then I got linked up with this group called Playlist Play, which is an online music magazine based out of Kansas City here. Nick and Savannah Howland, who are two of my absolute favorite people in Kansas City, would highly recommend for future podcast subjects.
I might have to. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
They're really cool people. So I met them and have started now shooting shows for Playlist Play, which is
awesome.
Where I primarily am hosting my work.
So right now, like, okay, I hate to post-date this, but I was at the Gorillaz concert last night.
Right.
And then, I know there's some other shows coming up. So how many nights of the week are you doing this now?
Oh, man.
Does it depend on the week? Or
it definitely
probably
depends
on the amount of shows or what, but I mean, it's not like an every night deal. That's why it's the hustle, right? Because it's like maybe it's always on like a Friday, Saturday.
Actually, not necessarily.
Really?
I mean, because, touring bands aren't necessarily always going to be in town on a weekend. But there's usually a lot of shows going on in Kansas City on the weekend, either touring bands or local bands that are based out of this town performing and playing on the weekend. So usually the weekends are pretty busy. And then I would say once or twice a week during like the typical work week, there's a show going on that I'm probably shooting too.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we're going to switch gears again.
Okay.
We are now we've gone from nonprofit to side hustle.
Right.
And now we're going to, can I call it a passion?
Sure.
Okay. A passion of yours, because you are the editor of Here Queer.
Right.
Which is, it's very in its infancy, would you say? Like it's kind of just starting?
We've like released one issue.
Like one issue. Okay, so why don't you tell people what Here Queer is? Let's start there.
Great. That's a great place to start. So Here Queer is a music publication that centers around telling the story of queer identifying musicians. So we have like a quarterly zine that we release, which is, the print edition. Along with that, we do a showcase. So the two main subjects of the zine play at the showcase. So you can come see them perform and then take home with you a zine that talks about their story and their music and how they got into music and what being queer has meant for them as a musician. So we have that aspect of it. And then we also run like a normal run-of-the-mill online publication. So since
with like reviews and things like that.
I mean, we try to stay away from reviews because it's just like the thing with reviews is that it's really cool to introduce people to new music, and reviews are one way to do that.
Right.
But the way that I would prefer to introduce people to new music is by talking to that musician and like if they're interesting. Yeah. So we do more interviews, and reviews are like just one person's perspective on a random other person's music.
Right.
What we want to really start doing.
I give that album A+.
Right. Well, and then there's that like really. It almost feels like superficial, like the rating system people use. Like, I would rather someone talk about why music means something to them than just say, I like this music.
I agree.
Especially when we're coming from this perspective of talking about queer voices in music, because, music is this like pathway to telling your story. And I think for a lot of people, myself included, music can be very powerful in your own like self-identification process. So hearing a queer musician talk about being queer openly, and even not, in a way that's like directly addressing queerness itself, but maybe just being, a woman talking about other women in their music, and obviously so, and not hiding that aspect of their identity can be really powerful to hear when you're young and figuring that out for yourself. And also maybe if you're in an environment where there aren't a lot of queer people. Like when I was in high school, there were no queer people around me. I went to like a Catholic all-girls school.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't something that people no one came out there.
No one came out. No one
Everyone
talked
came out in
about
college. No one came out in high school. But when you would hear about musicians or you would see those characters on TV or, whatever it is, it kind of gives you this hope that maybe that thing that you're feeling isn't a weird, isolated thing, that there are other people like you in the world.
And especially if it's someone that's in a spotlight.
Right. And someone that's being celebrated too,
yes.
right? Like not just someone that's, like the weird outcast, as oftentimes queer kids start to feel when they're in an area where there aren't other queer people like them.
Got it. So how's the response been so far for you? You released one...
We've had one issue of the zine released back in June.
You've got another one coming up with the showcase,
around the
right?
bend. Yeah, right. Yeah. And that show will feature 2 bands from Kansas City.
Okay.
Lover Girl and the Black Creatures,
nice.
Which are both bands that I've kind of started to get to know by having started this publication and people, saying, hey, you should check out this band.
Right.
Which has been a real fun part of it for me is people knowing that I'm doing this, keep recommending bands for me to check out, both national touring bands and musicians that are performing right here in Kansas City, which I've really, really enjoyed that part of the process. And I've had the opportunity to talk to some really cool musicians. And every time I get that chance to hear what they have to say about being queer or read their responses to something that I've sent out, it just reaffirms the need for this to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
For there to be a place for that story to be told.
So do you think, I would say that being here in the Midwest and being queer obviously has a lot of different challenges than some other areas of the country, but let's just talk about this publication itself, because there's nothing else like this that I can think of in the Midwest. I mean, I can't think of anything else that what you're trying to do that is out there that's like this. And
that's exactly why we wanted to do it.
Okay, but so then that's the second part of my question is that do you think it's going to be harder to do this in the Midwest versus the coasts?
That's an interesting question.
You kind of think it's like Kansas City is not San Francisco,
right?
There's a different kind of attitude sometimes for this. I'm trying to be as PC as possible, but
sure.
But I imagine that the response though, that's because I think I'm all about people empowerment and people going out there and being themselves and
totally.
Finding things that they love and they want to do. So I'm hopeful that you can find that too here in Kansas City. And so my question is really how has it been so far? Have people latched onto it? Are they more and more?
So I think that's the thing, is that there are queer people everywhere, right? And just because we're not in a coastal city doesn't mean there aren't queer people out there living their lives and musicians making music.
Right.
And then on the flip side of that is that being in the Midwest, no, we don't have as many music publications that are based out of Kansas City. We don't have as many people who are specifically, trying to tell the stories of queer people in general, let alone queer musicians.
Yeah.
So there isn't something quite like this. And so I think that it speaks to an audience that hasn't been spoken to. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And that's why we're seeing, some early success indicators, people wanting to interview us for podcasts, people being interested in playing the showcases, and kind of latching onto that. So, it's hard, it's hard to find.
Well, it's a grind. It's a passion, but it's a grind.
Right.
To get up and running. Yeah.
Right. But it's absolutely worth it. And it's been a great experience. And the people who are supporting us are.
So what's your long-term goal?
A
episode, like a zine a month? You want to showcase a month?
We're
you're
doing
quarterly right now.
Quarterly
you want to build up to, but.
I think that the quarterly system is really good for us in that it's pretty sustainable. Like you said, it's not San Francisco. We don't have a million bands that are all playing.
That. I absolutely it hurts me inside to say that because I don't want to just go out there on a limb and say, well, it's not San Francisco. I hate saying that because I want Kansas City to be an all-inclusive, wonderful place and everything. But you and I both, just like you said, we're both Kansas City natives. I grew up in a small town high school where no one ever came out.
Right.
You're a Catholic school where no one ever came out. So I mean, I feel like sometimes when in Kansas City wise, I think like sometimes it's getting there, but it's not where it should be.
Right.
And so I think by you doing this and growing this, I mean, I'm thinking it's going to get more out there, more people interested and more people intrigued in it. So I hope that like, I feel like there's more of a grind here in Kansas City than there would be in other places.
Sure. Yeah. And I see what you're saying. I think in a larger city, it might be easier to get kind of lost in the maze of like everything else that's going on in that city.
Right.
I think that's what's cool about Kansas City is that we're a big city now.
Yeah.
Like we're growing. Comparatively in the Midwest, we're one of the bigger cities.
Right.
And at the same time, we've still retained this really like small town feel,
Yeah.
which can be both good and bad.
The folksy vibe, yeah.
And that, you know, like I can go out to any event and run into like 12 people that I know. But then at the same time, we kind of have retained some of the other like feelings of a small town that aren't maybe as great.
Right.
The closed-mindedness occasionally you experience, you know, lack of diversity we are certainly experiencing, and we're seeing some of those things still. But as we continue to grow, my hope is that like that starts to shift. Yeah. And if, you know, Here Queer can be a little part of that shift where we are like there's something going on that's promoting diversity and acceptance and tolerance of people that are different from you. If you are not a queer identifying person, or makes you feel more welcomed and at home if you are a queer identifying person, like then that's part of the goal too from a larger cultural perspective.
I think there was a couple weeks ago there was like the Emmys happened, and like Kumail Nanjiani won, or he presented, and then before that like Aziz Ansari, and then the writer from his show, like I think her name's Lena.
Yeah, she's incredible.
And so like I don't remember who sent out the tweet, but someone said, I think it was like Cal Penn or somebody, it was like, if I was a kid and I saw Lena, Aziz, then followed by Kumail. When I was a kid, I would have freaked out thinking, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of diverse people that are just like me.
Yeah, and then also like Donald Glover too.
And Donald Glover too. So I mean, like I feel like the world is becoming more diverse. I think there's still some crazy stuff going on in the world, but I hope that Kansas City reaches that apex too. And I'm excited to hear how Here Queer does, because I think that you are on to something. I think you've got like something started here that could be really awesome.
We're hoping so. We would love to see this become something that like isn't just, you know, a Kansas City thing. Like we love to bring that hometown pride to Kansas City if it expands and we have more of a national following, you know, in 5, 10, 15 years, however long that takes. But we'll always be, you know, from KC originally.
KC born and raised, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break.
Sounds great.
We'll be right back with Anna Selle. Did you know the Kansas City podcast is on Instagram? Well, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe. Did you know the Kansas City podcast is on Twitter? Well, now you know that as well. G.I. Joe as well. Check us out on all of our beautiful social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Follow us, send us messages, and we are still looking for more questions to add to the KC quiz. Send those in. You never know when your question might be chosen and who might answer it. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Kansas City Podcast. Cole Lindbergh here with Anna Selle. And during the break, we were discussing many things. Anna actually brought out her camera. It was teaching me more and more camera tricks and tips.
Right.
And I've got one right now, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this tip and trick. I want you to tell me if you've heard of this.
Okay.
Okay, what you do is you take your camera.
Okay.
Okay. And you go outside. And you set it down on the ground.
Okay.
Okay. And just leave it there.
Okay.
And then come back later in the day, and it will
disappear.
No, what'll happen is that your camera will become more like ingrained with nature, right? So like it will start to, if you're outside taking your landscape portraits, your landscapes, okay, the grass is greener.
Okay.
The sky is bluer.
Yeah, it sounds like you maybe just adjusted your white balance.
No, I don't think so. I think what's happening is that the camera is like, it knows it's outside, and so it's like, I'm a part of this.
Interesting perspective.
It's like a living being. What do you think?
Well, I would think
Would
that
you
like
do this? Because I think this is a great tip.
First of all, if I set my camera down on the street anywhere, it would for sure be stolen within 5 minutes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be.
Okay.
And then secondly,
you mean your camera's not going to walk away?
It won't. It will walk away on someone else's feet in their hands. No, I think that by most definitions, cameras are in fact not living things. I'm sorry to tell you.
Okay.
Although they feel very much a part of us in a very cyborgian way.
Well, I'm gonna disagree.
Okay,
but,
well, we can agree to disagree.
You're the professional.
Science versus
you're the professional.
Philosophy. Who's to say what's true and what's not?
I feel like if you're going to take photos of nature, you got to have your camera be part of nature.
Okay. I mostly take, city shots and portraits. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's the difference because
fair.
your camera's spending more time with you, so it's spending more time with a person.
So
then
it feels very attuned to.
It's in tune to people. Okay, great. Whatever. Anna, it's time for our favorite part of the show.
The KC quiz.
That's right. It is the KC quiz. Okay, so you know how this works. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. You will be awarded points.
Oh,
points
I didn't know that there was a point system.
Oh, yes, there is a point system.
Okay.
Obviously, you've listened to the show.
Right.
There's a point system. The points are very important, 50 points max. Remember, if I ask you a question and you do not like the question, you can always say, stupid question.
Okay.
And then last but not least, folks, remember, you can always tweet us at Kansas City Pod if you would like to have a question added to the KC quiz.
Really?
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
so we're getting some every now and then, and I've got one today that I believe is a new one today that is.
Let's try it out.
It's from a tweet. Okay, are you ready?
I am ready.
Right, here we go. I'm gonna hit it right on.
Are these rapid fire? Or do I need to just go as
No.
fast
You
as
can take your
possible?
time on this. Okay,
great.
all right. So here we go. I'm gonna start. Where do I want to begin? Okay, let's just start. Pretty simple. Your favorite restaurant that is not barbecue.
God, that's not a simple question.
It is a simple question. You can name like 2 or 3. It's fine.
So my favorite restaurant, for like workday lunches, because we're here in Westport.
Okay.
Jerusalem Cafe.
Yes.
Hands down, it is a favorite of the Literacy Lab staff.
Yes.
Favorite restaurant for like a little bit nicer, maybe a dinner, maybe a place I don't go frequently, Lulu's in the Crossroads.
See, okay, I love Lulu's as well.
Yeah.
All right.
I think
what
those
do you get at Lulu's?
I try to mix it up.
You try to mix it up?
Yeah.
See, I'm like a pad thai.
I do like pad thai.
I do like pad thai, but like I have a really hard time like getting away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I go to a Thai place, like I'm like, oh, I want to try this, and I'm like, but I really just want some pad thai.
No, I like to mix it up. I like
You
to
mix
try
it
new
up.
things.
You go for it. Okay, next question. We're not far from here. Is it the Plaza or Plaza?
It is the Plaza.
It is Plaza. You're going Plaza.
In my diction.
Okay.
I understand that some people might pronounce it differently, and that's okay.
Okay. So you're not a Plaza?
I would say Plaza.
And I'm
not
a Plaza.
You say Plaza?
No, I don't.
I think my understanding is like a native versus a visitor.
Okay, that's
thing.
a good point.
I know more natives that say the Plaza.
Got it. I agree.
Okay.
Favorite local event? You get to go to a lot of these.
I do.
So we'll back to the photography question then, basically, because you said that sometimes you get to hang out and stuff, but like, let's say you're shooting a music festival,
right,
or something like that. I mean, you're probably just going from band to band to band.
That's what it feels like typically.
Yeah. So I mean, do you feel like if it's a band that you really, really like, do you feel like you're getting the full experience, or do you feel like your experience is even better? No.
No, I've thought about this recently, actually, that like the way that I attend live shows and experience my favorite bands is so different than when I was not a photographer.
Yeah.
Or, a show photographer specifically.
Right, because
but
you're working.
I don't know if that's also because like I'm seeing so many more shows now that maybe I'm like a little bit jaded.
Okay.
And then part of it is that I'm working. Maybe part of it's just that I'm like getting older, and so I'm slowly losing my like magic. No, I don't think that's what it is.
Okay, well, let's not limit it to like music festival, but like your favorite local event.
I really like First Fridays.
Okay.
Perfect. I like them for what they are supposed to be, which is like the gallery openings and kind of that cultural apex of the city for one night. Mm-hmm. I like those.
Okay. What else? Anything else?
I do really like Middle of the Map Festival.
Okay.
I think that's an opportunity to bring a lot of bands that wouldn't necessarily normally come to Kansas City on a tour, which is what I like.
Perfect. All right, it's time for one of the Twitter questions. Are you ready?
Great.
Are boneless wings just chicken nuggets?
Yes.
Next question. Your favorite barbecue?
Favorite barbecue?
And now, your friend Ben Wendt
Yes.
was on here, and he had like a whole like crazy like Mount Smokemore of like his like Mount Rushmore of barbecue. I'm not going to require you to do that.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite barbecue?
Man, I grew up on Jack Stack because my parents are we're from like South KC.
Okay.
So there's that Jack Stack right down there in Martin City.
Yep.
It was pretty close by. Ate it all the time.
Okay.
It's a little fancy, you know. It's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
It's not really the working man's barbecue necessarily. So I love any just like cheap barbecue, $10 or less for like a good sandwich and some fries. Which you can get that anywhere in KC.
So, but you don't have a preference?
No, that's the thing. Is I just like any
wherever,
barbecue.
like you
wherever is close by.
Okay, all right. Here we go. Your favorite place to see live music?
Oh, someone asked me this recently. I really like the Midland,
Okay.
both to go as an attendee and as a photographer.
Okay.
They've got great acoustics. It's a beautiful old building, like right in the heart of downtown. They bring some like really, really good
Yeah, they
artists.
bring some and comedians.
And comedians too.
Yeah.
I used to really love the Tank Room
Okay.
before it became the Black Dolphin. Which I just like can't. That's the first time I've said those words out loud, it's different. I mean, it's
a
you know,
tough one.
it's for contemporary jazz now, so it's got a different vibe altogether. But
Yeah.
the Tank Room was a really good like place to see those up and coming touring bands.
Right. Let's see here. I think I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Favorite local band?
Oh, do you assume that I'm going to say Rachel Mallon and the Wild
I
Type?
am assuming that, yes.
I am pretty fond of Rachel Mallon and the Wild Type, as well as
I was right.
as well as Janky,
Okay.
which Rachel is also in.
Okay.
And then this band called Mess. Those are some buds of mine.
Okay.
Smokey James and the Avalanche. I know you said one, but there are like just so many good bands.
You can have
in
as
Kansas
many as
City.
you want. I mean, you know, it's...
Well, you don't want to say that because I'll just go through we'll have
You-
45
we'll
minutes
be
of me
here
just
all day,
talking about
right?
local bands. Yeah.
All right, your favorite place to hang out?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I thank you.
What kind of hangout are we talking about?
I mean, I don't know. You define it yourselves. Like, is there a local hangout you like going to, or like a local place
Okay,
you like
sure.
to hang
So
out? Yeah.
I like to spend time at like the Nelson and the Kemper when I
Okay.
can.
Yeah.
Especially if they've got a good new traveling exhibit coming
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time at Thou Mayest.
I'm sorry. The what?
Thou Mayest?
Yeah.
You've never heard of Thou Mayest?
Why?
You do a podcast about Kansas City?
Wait,
and
hold on.
in the Crossroads?
Maybe you're pronouncing it different than I would. Dow what?
Thou Mayest.
Okay, yes, I know what you're talking about. If the way you're saying it, I was like, what?
No, so that coffee shop, I like it. It's open late on Thursdays, so that's like a good night for me to go and just get a bunch of work done.
Got it. Greatest song of all time?
Oh, what kind of question is that?
It's a good question.
No,
It's
stupid
a
question.
question. Okay. Oh, you just pulled the stupid question. You took it. There you go. Very nice. All right. So far, you're up to like 35 points. You're doing really well.
Okay, how many questions do we have left?
I don't know, like 6. No, 4,
Okay.
3, maybe 2.
Okay.
Is it pop or soda?
Soda. I don't know.
Soda, you don't care? All
Yeah.
right, minus 1 point.
Hey.
Here we go.
You're just
let's
mad
hear.
because I used the stupid question
Yes,
card.
I am. All right. What's Kansas City missing? This is a big one. What's
Ooh.
Kansas City missing? You know, like what do we need? Do you
So
get to
I feel
travel
like
much? Do you get to go to other cities?
I do. I travel a bit. So this is gonna get a little bit real.
Oh, okay.
For a second.
Okay, let's get real.
Welcome diverse spaces for all people.
Okay.
You know, like I think there are a lot of really cool, fun spaces to hang out if you are white and straight. I'm gonna be really real and say that like there are not a lot of places that like I was actually just talking with someone about this the other day to like commune as the queer community, right? You know, like there isn't like a spot that isn't a bar that feels like, hey, this is where,
Right.
you know, this is a hip spot for the young queers. I feel like after I've said this word like 40 times on this podcast that I should explain that like queer is not a slur Because I think some people still have that mentality.
I think some people do too, but I mean, it's good for you to like break that down because some people would be like, oh, she's totally bashing.
Right. Well, and also sometimes people think that you're saying that word in like a shock jockey kind of way.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But no, it's like I love the word queer, and it's the most encompassing of the community, in my opinion.
In your opinion, right?
And I would way rather someone call
me
queer.
What would you say to someone that like do you think that there's still like folks in the queer community though that do see that as kind of like?
Yeah, I think there are, and I think that's shifting a little bit as more and more of our community has re-embraced that word.
For me, like I always want to try to be as like PC as possible for the most part, but like, you know, LGBTQ, and then they added an A for a while, right? I feel like it's always changing.
Now LGBTQIA plus.
Oh my goodness! See, like I can't even keep up with it.
Right, and that's because it reflects the human experience. Like
it's always changing.
There are 7 billion people on the planet. There are 7 billion ways to identify. Yeah, you know.
So for you, queer just encompasses all of that.
Yeah, totally. And I hear a lot of people saying that same thing who are in the queer community. Anyway,
I like it.
So all that to say, I think that's something that Kansas City really needs for not just queer people, but people of color, people of different faith backgrounds, like everything.
Perfect. All right. Who's doing good right now?
It's just in general?
Sure. Who's doing good right now? Define it yourself.
Good?
Yeah, who's doing good?
A lot of people are doing good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Anybody in specific? Anything that's doing good right now? Or are they doing good?
Right, because, you know, when you say doing good...
Are they, like, doing good?
I know what you mean, like, oh, he's doing real good, you know?
Well,
but
I mean,
like,
it depends on how you want to define it.
But in my world, doing good is, like, doing something good for other people.
Like, the Literacy Lab is doing good.
Yeah, the Literacy Lab's doing good.
For people. Right.
Oh, you know who's doing good?
Yeah.
Dr. Mark Bedell. He is the superintendent of KCPS.
Okay.
That guy's doing good and doing good. I went to a community link meeting this last week and heard him speak for a little while, and I was like, man, that guy gets it.
He's doing good.
He's doing good, and he's doing good.
I like it. All right, here we go. It is time for you're up to 41 points, by the way. You've got a really good chance here to
break 50.
Well, I don't know if you'll break 50, but you could get some really good points on this question. Okay, it's time for the Google challenge.
Oh, I don't know what that means.
Okay, so I'm going to explain to you.
Great,
so the Google challenge is, I went onto the Google machine.
Oh, okay.
And I typed in the following. Okay, so like Google has the autofill. So I typed in photography is... What did Google fill in at the end? Photography is...
Oh my gosh.
What do you think? So, because you got to think about this strategically. That's because what are people typing? What are people searching? So, photography is...
I feel like dumb is like a word that would probably come up in there.
So that's like the first thing you think that would come up?
Well, I think I can just imagine people being like, photography's dumb.
Okay.
But I think also maybe art would come up. Photography is hard.
Okay.
Maybe. Because I could see people wanting to like learn more about photography.
Okay.
What came up? What's the answer?
What's your answer?
I just gave you 3.
No, you got to pick one.
I have to pick one?
Yeah.
All right, I'll say art.
That is on there.
Okay.
There's photography is art. There's photography is not art. But on the Google for the first thing that pops up, it says photography is not a crime.
Oh, well, that's a great, like, another whole episode of a podcast.
Right. So that was the first thing that came up.
Interesting.
I know. I thought so too. Because
photography is not a crime. Photographers can commit crimes.
Photography is not a crime.
Photography can be a crime, but not the way that I do it.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Let me add up your points here. Carry the 1, 7, 20. You were at 54 points.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding. You're at 48.
Well, I don't even know what this point system is. What is the point system?
It's my point system. You can look at the leaderboard online. No. You can look up the leaderboard online. You're at 48 points. Congratulations.
Thank
Very
you.
well done. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for taking the KC quiz.
Yo, thank you for administering the KC quiz. I feel like I just took the ACT again. But instead of determining my fate, this has just been a nice, pleasant conversation.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Fair.
All right, we're back here. Anna, we're nearing the end of our time today. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
A lot of different things. We've covered all your different lives from the nonprofit by day.
Which, Chris Agarian, who is a man about town, music promoter, works for radio stations, does like a lot. Calls it the Clark Kent,
Okay.
like what you do by day is your Clark Kent versus
so your
Superman.
nonprofit Clark Kent by day.
That's my Clark Kent.
Your side hustle Superman photography at night.
Right. But I feel like I maybe feel more like a superhero in my day job.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a good point. Well, I mean, okay, so then you'd be Superman by day, Clark Kent at night.
What a weird, strange reality.
And then, of course, we talked about Here Queer. So why don't you, this is your time. You get to plug. I want to make sure you cover the Literacy Lab, but break it down for us.
All right. So
a lot of things, folks. Get your pencils.
Yeah. Take notes on your phones.
Yes.
Literacy Lab is an education nonprofit in Kansas City. If you're interested in getting involved and maybe serving as a literacy tutor, you can find us at theliteracylab.org. So that's my day thing, and
that's your Superman.
That's my Superman, and you can be a superhero too for a kid if you want to serve with
Batman.
us. You're Batman.
I'm Batman.
You're just like a rich ninja.
I think that's my favorite description of Batman ever.
I mean, that's all he is. Like he doesn't have powers. Anyway, yeah, that's one thing. What else were we talking about? What else do I do?
Okay, so
Can you remind me?
So then we talk about photography.
Yeah. Photography. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I post a lot of my photography work there at Mannerisms, MANNARISMS. Like, someone's mannerisms, but then I put my name in the middle of it.
And then tell people how to find Here Queer.
Here Queer, you can find us also on social media. Here Queer, all one word. And that's HEARQUEER. Like we're hearing queer, as opposed to like we're here, we're queer. But we are, so. And you can find us online at here-queer.com.
For me, remember, folks, you can find me on Twitter at Cole Lindbergh. Please make sure you check out our website, thekansascitypodcast.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Thank you again for all of your wonderful reviews online, even the bad ones. They crack me up.
Hey, the criticism helps you grow, right?
I mean, the criticism helps me grow, but also, like, I think someone posted on there, they said, hey, if you get a bad review, that means you made it.
True.
Who knows, right?
Well, I haven't gotten a bad review yet. So it doesn't mean I haven't really gotten any reviews though. So
well, I have, and there is someone out there that does not like my voice. They are not the line was, "What's with the voice?" That was like the title of the review was, "What's with the voice?" And then it said something along the lines of, "This will not last." And I'm sorry, to whoever, I don't even remember his name. It's something Piano or something like that. It's lasting.
How many episodes are you on now? What episode number will this be?
This will be like number 12, 13.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean,
You're
we're
on a
up there.
roll.
We broke the 7. Like the rule is like 7. If you get past 7, yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Most podcasts like die at 7.
Oh, I tried to start a podcast and it died before it started.
Okay, well, see, so yeah, so if you make it past 7, you're already like better than like 90% of the other podcasts out there.
Wow. So maybe I should just like get back into that, do 8 episodes, and then call it a success.
I mean, I guess you could.
Okay.
You did more than 90% of other people, but I mean, it's while you have your Clark Kent grind at night, the Kansas City podcast is my Bruce Wayne grind. and because I am just a rich ninja.
Wow.
With a couple microphones and a recorder.
That's how you can afford all these.
Just that's right. All this beautiful equipment.
Fancy podcast equipment.
Fancy microphones.
Yeah.
And so I mean that's the Kansas City podcast. That's my grind. Here Queer is your grind.
Right. Yeah.
Perfect.
I gotta appreciate the side hustle.
That's right. So and I'm gonna learn about photography next. You're giving me a bunch of camera tips.
Yeah.
ISO, shutter speed.
Don't leave your camera on the street.
I disagree. If you want it to be more with nature and take better pictures, you leave it outside. No, but also please thank you very much for all the comments. Please continue to share the site, share the podcast, like us on Facebook, all that type of stuff. Anna, time is up. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to say to the people before we go?
Show other people kindness. I don't know. I feel like whenever anyone's like, what's your grand last thought? I have to say something really insightful, but I'm just like, just be nice. Show people kindness.
I think that's perfect.
And respect and dignity.
I think that's great.
Great.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Cole.
Really appreciate it. We will see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.